Hi, Yvonne. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Fabian. Pleasure to be here.
You're the co-founder and COO of FlyNow Aviation. First of all,
Correct.
what led you to your current role and what specifically is it you're doing?
As a COO, I am responsible for everything that is not technique related, basically. So you can as well say the girl for everything. And yeah, it is, setting up the organization, taking care of the employees, doing all the contracts. I did financials for a long time. Now I'm very happy that we have a very capable and super CFO on board. And yeah, so events, marketing, coordination of everything. So everything which is not product related or technical related.
Sounds fascinating, like you're wearing many, many hats there. For individuals that are listening to this podcast that haven't heard of FlyNow Aviation, what specifically is it you're doing as a business and what is your vision for the future?
Yeah, so we develop a modular e-copter family. It's basically an electric helicopter flying automatically for transporting passengers and goods. So we developed a cargo version that is capable to transport 200 kilograms in the size of a Euro pallet, as it is the most common size in logistics. And for the personal transportation, we have a single and a twin seater for one or for two passengers. And we always get the question, why not for 4 or 5 passengers? That would be much better. And every car is equipped with 4 or 5 seats, etc. The answer is very simple. On one hand, we have to match the weight and capacity of the battery, which is a very thin line to match on one hand. And the other thing is we are talking about individual mobility. So imagine you order an Uber or a taxi, then usually you order that for yourself or for you and a partner, but you don't want to wait till 3, 4, 5 other guests are joining you. So it's the most simplest way of transportation, and we have a very light empty weight, so only about approximately 350 kilograms. So if you compare that with a battery electric car that in average weighs 2 tons, it has a significant advantage when it comes to resource consumption. On the other hand, the same applies for energy consumption, where we only need a half for the same passenger or cargo kilometer in comparison to ground-based transportation. And we need a lot less infrastructure. So when you look at the footprint, it's only 7 square meters, and compare it to all the other competitors, they usually have a 10 by 10 meter field that is required. We can store 14 of these devices on the same area. So this is basically what we do. We try to solve the issues of congestion, noise, pollution, and all these hurdles that we especially observe in dense urban cities all over the world.
This sounds fascinating. For individuals that aren't so close to your industry, including myself, how would you describe the state of air taxis or air mobility more widely at the moment?
You mean how far this development is? Is it graspable or not? I would consider that the future is here, and this industry is on the way to take off. So it's not a matter or a question if 3D mobility is going to happen. It's just a question: who is first? Where is it happening, and who are the key players? I think these are the 3 main questions that needs to be raised, and Of course, there's always a hack and an egg problem, because the infrastructure right now is not here, which means vertiport. And as well, we have a lack of regulations, not only for the vehicles, but as well for the operations. And on the other hand, a lot of the OEMs are behind their schedule. So these are the three question marks, but nevertheless, there is a huge push from different governments and entities and so forth to really move on with this development. And when you look at China with EHang, when you look at the US with FAA and Agility Prime, and when you look at the EU with all these initiatives right now happening, then we can really observe, okay, this is going to happen, and this is happening fast. And especially now the Middle East pushes a lot. So UAE, Dubai announced that they started with Joby beginning of 2026, or even next year, 2025. And yeah, we will launch in Saudi Arabia. So end of the year, we will have the first pilot project. Next year, we will have a sandbox with all the relevant stakeholders, meaning infrastructure, vertiport and digital infrastructure, air traffic management, weather data, digital twin, the connectivity, insurance, so all the necessary stakeholders involved, as well as the government and regulatory bodies, in order to validate the regulations and see how it is feasible to implement, especially all these different kinds of vehicles. So let me describe briefly what the problem here is. We have the regular aviation, which falls under air traffic control. And then we have the smaller drones up to 25 kilogram, which are handled under UTM. All of the space between, when it comes to automated or autonomous flight, be it our e-copter or any other device, or cargo lifting drones, etc., is currently not regulated. And now imagine later on you have an area, let's consider Riyadh. So you have Riyadh with 9 or 10 million inhabitants, and you want a broad applications where thousands of vehicles, of different vehicles, are operated. And you have a mall. And from this mall, you want to start a small drone with delivering medicine. And you want to have an automated flying vehicle landing, either for passenger or for cargo. And you want to have a classic eVTOL piloted as well, landing on this mall, bringing customers, for instance. So then we have 3 different kinds of vehicles sharing the same airspace. So EU, for instance, right now develops a path that is dividing the airspace in so-called U spaces, U minus spaces. But in this case, all of these different vehicles would share the same, at least start and landing hub. So what needs to be developed is a system where we make sure that it's collision-free, it's safe, it's coordinated, it's scalable, and it's highly automated. Why is highly automated so important? Because for now, one air traffic controller can handle only 10 planes. So only with a human air traffic controller, this system is not feasible. So we need to go for an automated system where the human is only controlling and observing the system. And this is, we are on the edge now to, do the next step in AI-based development when it comes to automation in the air traffic or traffic control. And when you look at the automotive industry, for years now, we talked about autonomous vehicle. And so far, so by now, 2025, it was expected that a lot of autonomous vehicles are driving. They are not, due to many reasons. First of all, the capacity of the autonomous devices takes up to 30% of the energy, which is quite a lot. The second thing is that you still have other participants. The third thing is, of course, insurance. So who is responsible in case of anything is happening? And of course, the ethical point, but this is discussed for years now. Should it be either the grandma or the mother with the child and so forth? So what to do? So there are a lot of uncertainties and there are a lot of problems that are not solved so far. And when we look at, there is level 1, level 2, there is level 2 plus, level 2 plus plus, and so forth. But no one is really going into level 3. And the reason is simply because who is responsible in case of anything is happening.
Mm.
Yeah.
Super fascinating.
Sorry for getting too broad.
No. There are a couple of points I would love to dive into a little bit more. So let's maybe start with the air traffic management. You explained very clearly, even to a novice like myself, how the steps that could happen and the different approaches that we see currently. Do you think, just looking ahead over the next sort of coming years, to really unlock that, as you suggested, there probably needs to be some clarity what sort of the unified holistic approach is? Do you think this should be driven by regulators or the industry or combination or external industry bodies? Who is driving this and really providing this clarity on how air traffic management should work?
So see, here is again this egg and egg problem. And when you look at all the large companies, they usually develop a system when they get paid for. But then there needs to be a state that says, okay, please develop the system for me. And in this case, I believe that it must be a close collaboration between the government, the regulatory bodies, and the private companies. And what we observe often is that there are a lot of state-driven initiatives, and they bring different companies together, but every company is lobbying for the solution they developed. But what we need is the interfaces between the different solutions and companies. So for instance, you need to have specific weather data. You need to have a digital twin. You need to have the connectivity. And you need to make sure that the connectivity is not going down. You need to have the interfaces between the air traffic management and the air traffic control. And so only if the companies are willing to jointly develop an overall system together with the regulatory bodies and the government, then it's feasible. And I had a long ongoing support and discussion from one of the government bodies from Saudi Arabia. And he pushed me really in this direction. Okay, we need the whole ecosystem. And that led to the approach that we founded the Sky Alliance for Automated Air Mobility, which is an international association. So where we found companies and said, okay, we are delivering this part, we are delivering this part, we are delivering this part, but we are all committed to the overall vision of bringing 3D mobility in a safe, scalable, and highly automated way. And this was, so to say, this approach. And of course, coming back to your question, yes, it is a joint effort. And we can only succeed in this effort if we partly leave out our ego. And I don't know if you have seen this Netflix documentation about the song We Are the World. What they, the best artists did in just one night.
Mm.
And this song were created by a very small group, and they invited all these different super high performer artists. And what the organizer did is he draw a big sign and put it out of the in the entrance door saying, "Leave your ego out." And I think this is one of the most important prerequisites to succeed. Collaboration, 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 and focus on the common aim. And then we are faster, easier, and we are serving the citizens, the countries, and the needs of the people and the environment. And this is what should drive us all, due to my opinion. I know a lot of people see that different, but this is my my mindset.
Building on that, if we think about the next sort of coming maybe 3 to 5 years, is probably even more challenging to look further ahead. You mentioned initially that you're currently working on both passenger and goods drones or air vehicles. What will come first, and how do you envision the global rollout of these technologies to sort of unfold until we see them around us here in Europe, for example?
So we will first start with cargo for two reasons. The first reason is there is a huge demand. The second reason, it is much more safe, this approach, when we start transporting cargo over low and unpopulated areas. The second or third thing is that we have a aligned certification route together with Austrocontrol and EASA. And this foresees that we start with the specific category and increase step by step the sale level, and then move into the certified category that enables us to transport people over populated areas. From the certification approach, we follow a different path that most of our competitors. When you see different vehicles flying for test flights or for showcasing, then you usually see on the site that it is a preliminary permit to flight, that it has nothing to do with a real certification. From the very beginning, even before we founded the company, we went to Austrocontrol. We presented this configuration and the system to them, and only after they said, okay, we like it, we support it, then we founded the company. And every development in hardware or software we pre-align in advance with the air authorities before we implement it. This led as well to the result that end of 2022, we already got the first certification in specific category Sale 2. And we know exactly what are the next steps in order to increase the sale level. The sale level more or less describes the organizational effort that we need to do in order to proceed a flight. And as well, then the next step into the certified category for the passenger vehicles. So the problem that a lot of our competitors unfortunately face is that they need to wait till the SC-VTOL is issued, the certification for the vehicle. And this is not issued yet by EASA. So hopefully they come up soon with all the frameworks so that they can start this process. In our case, we are not a drone. We are, per definition, a helicopter. So we go for CSVLR, for very light rotorcraft, and for CS-27. And that makes it a lot more easier so that we know exactly, okay, these are the next steps. This is what we need to do. This is all predefined. And yeah, that's a huge advantage that we do have in comparison to others, fortunately.
No, that does make a lot of sense. And you mentioned word there a couple of times, autonomous. How is autonomous different from automated?
That's a very good question. So an autonomous approach means that the vehicle, be it a car or be it a plane, decides every millisecond where to go and what to do. So it decides itself. Automated is known in the aviation since decades. With an autopilot or in the military, they fly automatically, meaning in a predefined route from waypoint to waypoint. For the passenger or the cargo which is transported, it makes no difference. You don't feel it, you don't know it, but from a technical point of view, and from a regulation point of view, it makes a huge difference. And currently, no air authority in the world wants an autonomous flight because they cannot control it. And when you look, for instance, 4 or 5 years ago, then a lot of the OEMs for eVTOLs claimed, okay, we do autonomous flight. And they started. And then 2, 3 years later, they all said, oh, we start piloted. Why is that? Because no air authority will want that, at least for the next 10 years. The second thing is that in order to program an autonomous approach, you have to have at least 70 to 90% real data of this airspace you're flying in. You don't have that. So you need to first have the data in order to be able to program it. Therefore, there is no autonomous flight. There could be an approach, which is if you use the regulations and translate it into an algorithm. So an analytic approach instead of a numeric approach. But still, regulation bodies don't want it. That knowledge is not here yet. And then we have to have a specific knowledge of all the airspaces, which currently we don't have. So there are a lot of prerequisites to do that. Therefore, step by step. And the bridge technology between piloted and autonomous flight is automatic flight. The thing is with automatic flight that everything needs to be under the same roof. So every flight, no matter what vehicle, needs to be under air traffic control, needs to be under the same system, and needs to share the same connectivity and collision avoidance. So a set of rules, what ADS-B, what sensors, what radar is used in order for collision avoidance, and as well what connectivity is. Is it 5G? Is it satellite connectivity? Is it as well, you need 2 redundant systems. So first of all, to fly the vehicle, if it's not piloted, in the specific route, so it's pre-programmed and it has a connectivity to the ground station. And when you lose the connectivity to the ground station, you need to make sure that it's processing further and does the flight as supposed. And if every vehicle files a flight plan in advance and is coordinated through air traffic control, then we have the situation that each vehicle stays in a specific like tunnel in the sky. This is the only way to go if you want an operation with thousands of vehicles where the air traffic control, meaning the government, is in charge of their airspace, which is very, very vital because the government needs to know exactly what kind of vehicle with what on board is from where to where in the sky, in order to make sure that the airspace, especially over urban areas, are safe.
That's fascinating. What role does AI or potentially even Gen AI play in either the air vehicle technology or the traffic management side?
A huge role. I mean, first of all, within the flight computer and the flight itself in the vehicle, and as well as mentioned in this system and the coordination, because you need to coordinate the routes so that it's collision free, it's safe, it does not touch any no-fly zones, etc., etc. So a huge role in every aspect, as well in the pre-flight check, etc., etc. So there are so many different applications. And when we really want to go on a broad scale and then on a huge implementation in order to ease the situation on the ground, we cannot go without AI.
What does the future hold in this space in terms of what are the big trends that we will see over potentially the next decade?
I think it's dependent on the willingness of adoption of the industry. What do I mean by that? I give you an example. When the car came out, there were a few brands. They really built excellent but very high cost cars. And then came Ford and introduced mass production and the Ford Model T. And with Ford Model T, he enabled the breakthrough of the automotive industry because everyone could afford it. If we now have a set that only luxury vehicles that only a few can afford, then we will not have a broad implementation of this technology. When we have devices like those, which are mass production, where we apply automotive processes, and where it's simple, easy, operable with very little footprint, then it's an immediate adoption as well for logistics, because when you can store them very tightly and when you can load and unload automatically, fly automatically, it is such an easy way, especially to remote areas where you have think of all the cabins in the mountains to deliver that, or to fly to deliver stuff to the islands, or in Africa, there have areas where there's a lot of wood and they don't have any roads, proper roads. You don't need to build the infrastructure, you just fly over. And it's always when you had breakthrough innovations that really, really served the needs of the people, the implementation were rapid. So, for instance, in Africa, the telecommunication with the mobile phones, they leapfrogged. And now everyone has a mobile phone. Or when we go to mobile phone, now everyone has an Apple iPhone because it's convenient, because you can do a lot, because it's easy. So the implementation was rapid. Or think back when a personal computer, I think IBM, they said, okay, there is a need for 5 personal computers all over the world. Now, no one can imagine not having a personal computer. Or think of Airbnb. Everyone were saying, no, Airbnb, we don't invest in this. You could buy, I think, for 100,000 euro, 10% of the shares. Now every $6 in the world is spent for Airbnb. Imagine that. And at the beginning, no one believed in it. And now it's a huge business. The moment that you bring a value for the people, this moment, it's unstoppable.
It's fair to say that you've definitely excited me about the future of air mobility. And thank you so much for joining me today, Yvonne. It's been fascinating and super insightful.
Thank you, thank you. It was a great talk, and hopefully it was not too technical.